History often pretends that wars are decided by numbers, by size, by how many bodies stand on one side of a field. But the Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BC exposed it lie for what it is. On a wide, flattened plain in what is now northern Iraq, the Persian Empire gathered the greatest army the world had ever seen. The historian Arrian claimed over 1 million men, though modern estimates put it closer to 250,000. Soldiers from every corner of the empire stood beneath banners heavy with gold and arrogance. This was not just an army. It was the physical manifestation of a dynasty that had ruled most of the known world for over 2 centuries. And across from them stood 47,000 men. No walls, no reinforcements, no retreat. By nightfall, the Persian Empire would be broken beyond repair. The Persian king, Darius III, did not come to Gaugamela to fight a risky war. He came to finish one. He had already lost to Alexander twice, most humiliatingly at the Battle of Issus. There, he had fled the battlefield, abandoning his family, his pride, and his reputation. Gaugamela was meant to erase that shame. This time, there would be no mistakes. He would not be outmaneuvered by narrow terrain or surprise attacks. He chose the battlefield himself, a vast, open plain, carefully leveled by his engineers, so his war chariots could cut through the enemy lines like blades. Darius believed in mass, in scale, in overwhelming force. He believed in the simple, brutal math of war. 200 scythed chariots stood ready, their wheels armed with spinning blades designed to tear flesh from bone. His cavalry, tens of thousands strong, stretched far beyond the Macedonian flanks, ready to envelop them. His infantry filled the horizon in suffocating density. When the Persian army moved, the earth itself seemed to tremble. In Darius' mind, Alexander was already defeated. This battle was just a formality. But the man across the field, Alexander the Great, did not share Darius' confidence. He shared something far more dangerous: clarity. The night before the battle, while Persian soldiers feasted and celebrated their coming victory, Alexander walked the ground in silence. He wasn't counting bodies. He was studying the shape of the land, the spacing of the enemy lines, the psychology behind their enormous formation. He understood something Darius did not. A massive army is not inherently strong. It is fragile. It relies on coordination, confidence, and absolute belief in its leadership. Break any one of those, and its numbers become a liability, a tangled mess of confusion. Alexander slept soundly that night. His general Parmenion suggested a night attack, fearing the sheer size of the Persian army. Alexander refused. "I will not steal my victory," he reportedly said. He knew panic belonged to the side that feared losing. If the Persians wished to fight at dawn, he would be ready. At sunrise, horns shattered the silence. The Persian army advanced like a living wall, a wave of steel and humanity rolling forward, its movement slow and seemingly unstoppable. Dust rose into the air, choking the morning light. The Macedonians stood firm, shields locked, phalanx spears bristling, watching an entire empire advance upon them. Then the chariots charged. Blades screamed through the air. Horses thundered forward, a terrifying weapon designed to rip open the disciplined Macedonian formations and spread chaos and terror. It was meant to be the moment of collapse. Instead, Alexander had prepared for it. The Macedonian front lines didn't break. They opened, deliberately. They created channels, funnels that guided the chariots through their ranks. As the chariots lost momentum, javelins rained down, striking horses and drivers. Men with axes ran alongside, cutting the reins. The fearsome weapon, meant to inspire terror, instead created confusion and disorder within the Persian lines. For the first time that day, Darius' perfectly planned machine began to falter. Now, a conventional commander might have ordered a full frontal assault, but Alexander was anything but conventional. Instead of charging directly into the massive Persian center, he did something strange. He began shifting his army to the right, marching almost parallel to the Persian front. It looked like he was trying to outflank the unflankable. Darius, determined not to be outmaneuvered again, responded by mirroring the movement, ordering his own left wing to extend further and further to counter Alexander. But with each step, the massive Persian formation stretched thinner. The dense line began to pull apart. What appeared disciplined and solid from afar became unstable up close. Alexander wasn't retreating. He wasn't just maneuvering. He was pulling the Persian army apart at its seams, and then it happened. A gap. A small, almost invisible separation opened in the Persian line, right near the center, where Darius's best infantry had been pulled away to follow Alexander's strange sideways march. To most commanders, it would have been a fleeting, insignificant detail in the chaos of battle. To Alexander, it was an exposed artery. He did not hesitate. In a single decisive moment, he wheeled his elite companion cavalry, forming them into a sharp wedge, and charged. Not at the flank, not at the infantry, but directly at that gap, directly toward Darius himself. This was not a reckless attack. It was a surgical execution. The wedge of horsemen smashed through the weakened Persian lines with terrifying speed and precision. Elite guards fell. Horses collided. The disciplined chaos of the Macedonian charge tore into the heart of the Persian command. Panic rippled outward as soldiers, moments ago confident in their victory, realized what was happening far too late. Alexander was not trying to defeat the Persian army. He was trying to kill its will to fight, and he succeeded. Darius saw the charge. He saw the dust and the chaos, and through it, the unmistakable figure of Alexander, coming for him unafraid, unstoppable, a force of nature surrounded by men who trusted him with their lives. The Emperor of Persia, ruler of the largest empire on earth, the man who had brought 250,000 soldiers to this field, faced a single defining choice: stand and fight, or flee. Darius turned his royal chariot and ran. That single act shattered the Persian army more effectively than any sword or spear. When the soldiers saw their king abandon the field, their belief evaporated. Orders stopped mattering. Discipline collapsed instantly. What had been a magnificent, coordinated force of hundreds of thousands became a panicked, terrified mass of individuals, each one desperate to survive. Empires do not fall when soldiers die. They fall when kings lose their nerve. What followed was not a battle. It was a slaughter. Persian soldiers, leaderless and broken, were cut down as they fled. Others were trampled to death by their own stampeding cavalry and collapsing formations. The battlefield became a graveyard stretching for miles, littered with priceless armor, abandoned weapons, and bodies torn apart by fear as much as by steel. Alexander tried to pursue Darius, hoping to capture him and end the war definitively, but he was forced to turn back to aid his own left flank, which was under heavy pressure. By the time the dust settled and the screams faded, the greatest army the ancient world had ever assembled no longer existed. The Persian Empire still existed on maps, but not in reality. Its spine had been broken at Gaugamela. The legendary cities of Babylon, Susa, and Persepolis would soon fall without meaningful resistance. As evening fell, Alexander stood victorious on the silent, blood-soaked plain. He understood what he had just done. In a single day, he had not just won a battle. He had rewritten history. The lesson of Gaugamela echoes through the centuries. It wasn't won by superior numbers or by luck. It was won by strategy, by audacity, and by a profound understanding of fear, movement, and human weakness. On that day, 47,000 men did not defeat 250,000. One mind defeated an empire. And from that battlefield, a new truth emerged, one that history would remember forever. Numbers make armies, but genius makes legends. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into history, Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more stories of the moments that shaped our world.